If you are the first in your family to awaken, you know you're carrying a heavy burden. But if you know how to work with that burden, you can break the cycle of abandonment. You can break the cycle of emotional codependency, and you can break the cycle of neglect so that you can set the standard for a new generation, awakened generation of a healthy, constructive, and mutually beneficial upbringing for your children and the children of your children. So if you feel aligned with what I'm about to share, with whom this message is related for, is made for, stay with me in this video, because you might as well find the first step to breaking the generational curse that you hold, that you carry, healing the generational wounds, and setting that standard for an awakened family. That being the case, let's directly step into the video. Hey there, I am Daniel from Higher Consciousness with Danny, and I am leading a tribe of awakened individuals who are grounding their awakening in all aspects of their life. And one of those aspects, my friend, is your family. If you were the first to awaken in your family, you truly hold a huge responsibility. But that responsibility is not what you're thinking it is. And I want to make that as clear as possible, as fast as possible. You are not responsible, not at all, not responsible for your family, neither emotionally nor physically. You're only responsible in doing the inner work to detach from them emotionally so you can reignite your connection to Source. You can reignite, respark that connection to God, to your godlike nature. And you can reparent yourself to become who you are supposed to be instead of repeating the mistakes that your family did. Okay, so if you were feeling like you're responsible for how your mother and your father feel, if you're feeling like you have to live with them because they wouldn't be able to handle themselves and they wouldn't be able to survive on their own, this is not of your responsibility. It is not. It's not at all. And I know you have tried, because if you are the first to awaken in your family, of course you want to save them. Of course, this part of you that is going through its awakening, this part of you that feels compassion for everybody, wants to heal them, wants to provide advice, wants to help them become better, whatever that means, however you see it for them, right? So, of course, part of you feels like they need to depend on you, otherwise they wouldn't be able to survive on their own, right? If you fall into that tribe of people who are trying to heal their family, I just want to make it as clear as I can make it. It's none of your responsibility. You are a free agent. The fact that you awakened first in your family means that you first need to take responsibility of your own self, emotionally, physically, energetically, being in alignment with all of who you are, instead of carrying your family wounds and their needs as a burden that would only slow you down on your path. And I know this might trigger you. I know this is not easy to accept. It's not at all, because obviously you want to help them, right? Obviously, it's like you care for them, you feel compassion for them. But let me ask you this, and hear me closely. Have your efforts to try and help them worked, or did they only make you feel disappointed at the end of it? Are they listening to you, everything that you want to share with them, your advice, or are they not taking you seriously and not respecting the way that you want to help them? You've tried, haven't you? So if you have tried, and if it didn't work out, and as Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Well, now you most likely grasp and understand the concept that you are not responsible for them directly, but instead you can only be responsible for them indirectly. And this is where it gets interesting, okay? Because once you understand that you cannot save them, you cannot save them. Why you cannot save them? Let me ask you this. Well, you cannot save them simply because every individual makes the choice of how responsible they want to be with their own life, how they want to live their own life. And even though they're your parents, they're really important people, right? Your mother and your father, grandmother, grandfather, so on and so forth, going generations back in time. If they haven't made the choice to do their own healing work, and you try to impose that on them, it's like give it to them on a silver platter. If they don't accept it, you're only infringing upon their free will. And the more you do it, the more you will suffer. Sorry to tell you that directly in the eyes, but this is how it works. So you can only help them, and this has been my experience and the experience of many people I have told this concept to. You can only help them once you give up trying to save them, okay? Because once you give up trying to save them, here is what happens. Now you have all this available energy coming back to you. And instead of you feeling emotionally dependent on them, it's like, I can only feel good if they feel good, if I've taken care for them. Because a lot of people who are trying to heal their family and who are the first to awaken in their family, a lot of you guys, you're highly sensitive people, you're empaths, right? And so you take on other people's energy as if it's yours, right? And you can use that ability to heal others, but that can only happen if they want it, if they've given you their permission, right? And what happens with our family, most of the times it's not like that, because we feel like we are responsible for them, while at the same time they haven't given us permission to help them, and then we are trying to force something that we think they should be instead of accepting them for who they are. And this is where the paradox is, okay? Listen closely again. The moment you give up trying to save them, all of this energy that has been wasted in trying to force your family to do something that they haven't admitted they want to do is now coming back to you. It's available. It's in a free reserve. Now you can take that energy, and I'll get into that illustration in a moment, but you can take that energy to become an example for them, to become an example of what it means to be doing the inner work, to become an example of what it means to take care for yourself, to become an example of what it means to be self-sufficient and self-reliable. Okay, your example is going to teach them everything that you want to teach them directly, but they will get it because they will be able to see directly in you the change that you are going through, and then they will feel inspired to make the changes you want them to make. This is how it's supposed to work. Your example is where your power is, my friend. If you have tried to force them in making changes and they didn't because they don't want to listen to you, you're breaking the family constellation, because mother and father are supposed to take care of their children. This is how it's supposed to work. The moment you try to take care of them, you're breaking that family constellation. You're treating them disrespectfully. Now, of course, it's hard to admit that initially, because on the surface, it feels like your intentions are benevolent. They're in their benefit. But if you look a little deeper, okay, and this is something that you inevitably realize, or you might have already realized, you're only trying to help them for you to feel better about yourself. And this is where it gets ugly. Because then once you see that hidden intent, it's out of view because it's below the surface. Once you see that hidden intent, it becomes obvious that you have been trying to save them for your own benefit. Because the moment they are able to understand you, and this, I have done that in my past couple of years back, I've tried to prove to my father that I am right. I've tried to feel understood by him, even though we're just completely different people. And I've always felt misunderstood, and we always had these fights. I always felt like he wasn't there in my life. He wasn't available emotionally, and I always felt misunderstood. And I was always trying to give him advice, but he only felt disrespected. And we didn't have that communication going until the moment I was able to accept him as my father. because I've had this moment where I was able to remember how I chose him as my parent, okay? And then I became really prideful that it was as if he's my choice and then I'm supposed to be responsible for him. But eventually I was able to become a little bit more humble myself down and respect him as my father. But at the same time as I'm respecting him, put my healthy boundaries in place, because previously our relationship was totally destructive and emotionally codependent. He was taking advantage of treating me as his children, and it was as if I was responsible for him because he didn't want to take responsibility for some of the aspects in his life. And the moment I put healthy boundaries there is the moment when he was able to see me as a grown-up individual, and we were able to actually share what is on each of our minds and have a communication. And he was able to look at my example and take something from it. But I needed to have respect for him as my father and respect for me as a unique individual, independent from my father and my mother. And this is how the healing happened. Before that, all my efforts were almost futile. They only led me to the realization that I was powerless to save him. Well, at the moment I gave up to save him, gave up that intention, I was able to actually be of benefit to him. But it was only because I had the respect for him. So, okay, going back to this point, your example is much more powerful than your advice. And understand this, my friend. If you're still dependent on your parents in some way, shape, or form, you are completely free to distance yourself physically and emotionally. Because here is what happens, and this is the second chapter of this video. Stay with me. Obviously, if you are the first to awaken, you understand that you are carrying this generational wound from your family, whatever it is. In my case, that was the wound of abandonment. Because my father wasn't emotionally present, I always abandoned myself, and I was the biggest people pleaser you could imagine, a big portion of my life. And so I was carrying this generational wound from my father and my mother. Both of them had the role in that. Of course, I'm not saying that for you to start blaming your parents, because ultimately it was your choice. You chose the family that you wanted to be born in, and you will inevitably remember that when the moment is right. So yes, keep that in mind. But you inherit the generational wounds, the conditioning from your father and mother. And instead of trying to help them or heal them, your responsibility becomes to reparent your inner child and heal your inner child. Does that make sense? So instead of trying to save your parents, what you do, if you're the first to awaken in your family, is you save yourself. And your example of doing the inner work, being devoted to your healing journey, to your reparenting journey, will give them the example, and they will make the changes you want from them by their own accord, by their own decision, with their own free will. Okay? Stay with me. So instead of holding on to those generational wounds and from them trying to heal them, you transition to becoming free from conditioning, which means that you only need to take care of yourself initially if you feel emotionally attached and dependent to your parents. And you need to connect with this archetype of the all-caring mother, the all-compassionate mother, which can forgive all of your mistakes, which can love you for all of who you are, all that you are, for everything that you have done, everything that you're doing now, and everything that you're supposed to do. Everything is forgiven on all those levels. There is this archetype of the all-loving and all-caring mother inside each of us, inside everybody. This is our presence awareness. This is our God nature. And there is also the all-wise father, which is the father that is not forcing their child into doing whatever the father wants. The all-wise father only provides direction and leadership to the child instead of trying to change him at will, trying to force him into change, instead of punishing him. Yes, instead of punishing him for everything that the child doesn't do. So you can connect to that archetype of the all-wise father and provide yourself the leadership and direction that you know you are capable of experiencing, right? Having in your life, so that you can build a healthy self-concept. And this is where the journey of reparenting yourself starts. Then you'll understand that this is your only responsibility, my friend. It's literally more than enough. It's everything that was asked of you always at all times, and it is your only job requirement. Healing yourself first, being the example for your parents, and they will follow. The moment I did that, my mother started opening herself up to all this spiritual advice, meditation, doing some form of practices, so on and so forth. Before that, she was not believing in those things. And this is what I mean, your example is your power. Your example is what people can see, and it starts with your family. Then it goes to the community, and then it goes even further. But your only responsibility, if you are the first to awaken in your family, is that you are not responsible for them emotionally, neither physically. You're only responsible for your own healing. And how this starts, my friend, is it starts with setting healthy boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries so you can commit to that inner work. You need the inner space to do the inner work and free yourself from the conditioning that you have inherited from your parents. And so you need to set healthy boundaries with them so that you can focus on yourself and be the example for them. Your radiation, your radiance then will go outside of you, and they will feel the change that you're going through, and will take a little bit of that for themselves by their own accord. And again, this is where the secret is. It must be their decision. You are not supposed, and you are incapable of saving them. But the moment you save yourself, since we are intrinsically connected to our generation, going backwards in time, our parents, grandparents, so on and so forth, and connected to our future generations, when you start taking responsibility of your own self on all levels that you're capable of, you will see that your previous generations start getting the fruits of your work, start experiencing the fruits of your work. In your future generations will become awakened generations, right? So this is how you break the cycle of codependency, of abandonment, of neglect, by doing the inner work yourself. If you have awakened first in your family, this, my friend, is your responsibility. Now, if you feel like you need further help with that, I have a methodology built specifically for that. It's called the Soulful Relationships Experience. And you can message me in WhatsApp if you're curious to understand more about it. I would love to connect and tell you a little bit more about it. So that was everything I wanted to share in this video. Thank you so much for staying with me. I hope you have a great day. Subscribe to the channel if you are new to it, and I will see you around in the next video. Bye bye. Enjoy your day.